Welcome to Shadowproof. Evidence first, noise last.
Imagine the pressure, 12,000 feet down, crushing, absolute, and then a metallic groan that wasn't on the checklist. The first warning wasn't a sound you could hear, but a smell. The sharp, electric tang of ozone cutting through the recycled air. Then came the touch, a fine, cold mist against the skin. Not water, but something. Thinner, the very atmosphere was bleeding out. Every breath became a conscious, painful effort. A shallow gasp that filled the lungs with nothing but the taste of stale metal and creeping panic. In that suffocating darkness, a new sound emerged. Not from the failing machine, but from the abyss outside. A low, resonant thrum, like a monstrous heartbeat. It wasn't just the air that was running out. Time itself became a tangible, sticky substance, each second stretching into an eternity of dread. This is the true story of the DSV Nereus and its final, silent dive. A descent not just into the ocean's depths, but into a nightmare where the only thing more terrifying than the pressure outside was the vacuum growing within. For 28 endless days, the oxygen monitors shrieked zero. The CO2 scrubbers fell silent, their failure absolute. The air grew thick with the metallic tang of ozone and the sweet, sickly smell of decay. And yet, against all reason, one man emerged alive. Doctors dismissed it as medically impossible until the X-rays revealed a secret not in his lungs, but hidden deep within his stomach. The images showed something that shouldn't exist. Something that defied every medical textbook and whispered of deeper mysteries. A deep, metallic creak echoes through the memory, followed by the distant groan of a submarine hull under immense pressure. This brings us to Portsmouth docks, a place where secrets are buried beneath the saltwater and rust. The HMS Proteus, a compact vintage research submarine, was being readied for departure. This is Mike Croft, ex-Navy, a mechanic with steel-calloused hands and a booming laugh that could command any pub. To his crewmates aboard the Proteus, he was simply Big Mike, the man who could mend a fractured ballast valve with a paperclip and sheer grit. Their mission was straightforward, a 14-day survey of a deep-sea trench off Scotland's coast. For Mike, life was routine, predictable, even boring at times. His companions were the stoic Captain John Harris and the brilliant, perpetually anxious marine biologist Sarah Chen. But back home in Bristol, Mike had a normal life, a wife, 2 kids, and the scent of charcoal smoke on a summer evening. A normal family, a body that, to all outward appearances, was perfectly ordinary. He never knew that a childhood tumble from a tree, a fall that fractured his ribs and diaphragm, had silently rewired his anatomy. It left behind a tiny, undetected fistula, a secret passageway, stitched between his stomach and his chest cavity, an invisible fault line, waiting in the silence of his own flesh, a flaw that would become a miracle. On day 9, the crushing monotony shattered. A violent, shuddering impact shook the hull as lights flickered wildly. The air grew thick with the scent of ozone and cold, damp metal. A deep-sea landslide, unpredictable and massive, roared down the trench wall. It didn't crush the Proteus, it entombed it. Thousands of tons of silt and rock hid the vessel at a depth where rescue would be a week-long nightmare. Their world shrank to a 40-foot tube of cold, groaning metal. Emergency lights cast long, dancing shadows across the control room as alarms blinked erratically. The crew's faces, streaked with sweat and a crimson glow, showed the first flickers of genuine panic. First, the power grid collapsed, plunging them onto emergency batteries with a sickening hum of ozone. Then came the sharp crackle of the communication buoy, severing their last tether to the world above. The cold seeped into their marrow, a tangible weight that settled deep, but their true adversary remained unseen. The air itself grew thick and stale, damaged in the impact. The carbon dioxide scrubbers began to falter with a sickening, irregular gas. The monitors, oxygen readings, began their inexorable descent. Day 15, day 18, they rationed water. They spoke in hushed whispers, conserving every precious molecule of air. Sarah's calculations were exacting, her numbers revealing a dwindling timeline of breathable hours that tightened the chest. The oxygen gauge's needle hovered with lethal precision just above empty. On the 22nd day, Captain John Harris slipped into the silent embrace of CO2 narcosis, a disoriented, final sleep from which there was no awakening. The grief was a suffocating presence, another toxin in the atmosphere. Now utterly alone, they felt the very air congeal into a viscous syrup. Each breath became a labored, conscious effort, a battle against the thickening gloom. Then, the headaches began, constant, escalating into blinding, skull-crushing migraines. Darkness crept inward, swallowing their peripheral vision. Each gasping breath felt thick and futile, as if they were suffocating in open air. The rasp of labored lungs was punctuated only by the slow, mournful beep of a failing monitor. On the 26th day, Sarah Chen's final, shallow breath stilled forever. Mike was utterly alone. In the profound stillness, he could hear the slow, heavy thump of his own heart. The air had grown stale and metallic, the scent of cold iron filling his lungs with each shallow breath. That gauge had read 0 for 2 days. A deep, primal dread settled in his bones, colder than the vacuum outside the hull. By every law of physiology, he should have been dead, but he wasn't. A deep, primal instinct had seized control. He no longer breathed through his mouth. Instead, a faint, rasping sound came from his throat, barely audible over the oppressive silence. The air around him grew thick, with the scent of damp earth and something metallic. His skin prickled with cold, sticky dampness as the reality of his condition settled in. Every muscle felt frozen, yet something within him was alive in a way it shouldn't be. This wasn't survival. It was something older, something that bypassed reason and spoke directly to the marrow of his bones. His chest convulsed in strange, gulping motions as a bizarre, fluttering expansion bloomed low in his torso. A metallic scent of ozone and old rot clung to the damp air, thick enough to taste. Terror seized him completely, yet his heart hammered on, a frantic, living drum against his ribs. In the dimness, he lay pale and wasted, a prisoner of his own inexplicably continuing existence. His abdomen pulsed and contracted in a grotesque, unnatural rhythm. Mike Croft was breathing, but not like you or I. That old flaw, his damaged diaphragm, had forged a secondary pathway. His stomach and intestines had become a primitive, supplemental lung. His body had become a grotesque, self-contained ecosystem. Trace oxygen diffused directly into his bloodstream through his gut, a horrifying, inefficient process, just enough to keep his brain flickering in a state of suspended animation, a waking coma. And in that fragile, oxygen-starved twilight, his mind began to unravel. His hallucinations intensified. He conversed with crewmates long gone, their spectral forms flickering in the dim light. He held lengthy dialogues with his wife, whose features were now a blurred, fading portrait in his mind. The boundaries between memory, nightmare, and waking reality began to fracture completely. His senses betrayed him. The sterile air carried a faint, metallic scent, and distant whispers echoed from the ship's empty corridors. He was a phantom sustained by biological error, a ghost haunting the machine's cold circuits. On day 28, the rescue claw shattered through with a deafening metallic shriek, followed by the thunderous roar of rushing water. A searing, blinding light flooded the chamber, carrying the sharp, metallic scent of ozone and ruptured steel. They had prepared themselves for a tomb, but what awaited them in that glacial, dripping silence was something far worse. In that sterile hospital room, they discovered him, a skeleton clutching the remains of his companions, his open eyes fixed and aware. The air carried the sterile tang of antiseptic, undercut by a faint, sickly sweetness of decay. His lips moved in a silent, desperate rhythm, forming words no one could hear. He was alive, imprisoned in a ruin of flesh and bone, a witness trapped within his own ending. Mike, gaunt and tethered to tubes, stared through the window with hollow eyes. X-rays on the lightbox revealed the impossible. Transvisceral diffusion, a survival mechanism never before seen in humans. Newspapers declared him the man who breathed through his stomach. But for Mike, this miracle was a waking nightmare. The sterile scent of antiseptic couldn't mask the deeper dread that now filled his every breath. Mike's body remembered. His digestion was permanently altered, a phantom expansion in his gut with every breath. The air in his apartment grew heavy, thick with the scent of his own fear. Each deep breath felt like swallowing broken glass, a painful reminder etched into his very core. The dark, the silence, and the faces of John and Sarah were etched into him deeper than any scar. He had survived an environment engineered to kill, but he could never truly leave it. The cold, metallic scent of the ocean depths clung to him, a ghost of pressure still pressing on his skin. He carried the submarine, its crushing silence and unseen horrors locked within him. Is it our perfect design, or is it the hidden fractures within us, the flaws that truly forge our will to live? Mike Croft's body was shattered, but in that brokenness he found salvation. The air carried the metallic tang of ozone and distant decay, while a faint, rhythmic scratching echoed from some unseen depth. He is living proof that the limits of the human body are a mystery we have yet to solve. We only think we do. The air grew heavy with the metallic scent of ozone and the faint, sweet rot of decay. A primal dread took hold, freezing the breath in his lungs as a cold, damp chill seeped through his clothes.
If the proof convinced you, subscribe and open the next case.